What if I told you that a man millions already considered a legend walked onto the America's Got Talent stage and somehow still had something to prove? And what happened next left the audience in tears, the judges completely stunned, and even Simon Cowell searching for words. Stay with me until the very end, because this story isn't just about talent, it's about resilience, humility, and the power of never giving up, no matter how many victories you've already achieved in life. And before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable stories that inspire, surprise, and remind us what the human spirit can achieve. The theater was buzzing long before the cameras started rolling. Thousands of people filled the seats, excited for another night of auditions. Contestants from every corner of the world waited nervously backstage, clutching microphones, rehearsing dance routines, or quietly praying for the chance to change their lives. The judges took their places, and the familiar lights illuminated the stage. Simon Cowell sat with his usual calm expression, while the audience eagerly anticipated the next performer. Backstage, however, stood a man who seemed strangely different from everyone else. Unlike the younger contestants anxiously pacing around him, he stood quietly, his hands clasped together. There was no arrogance, no sense of entitlement, no expectation that success was guaranteed. Instead, there was humility. The man was Gary Valenciano, a performer whose name had become synonymous with excellence across generations in the Philippines. For decades, Gary had entertained millions. He had performed on massive stages, recorded hit songs, and inspired countless artists. To many people, he was already a superstar. Yet standing backstage that night, he felt the same nervousness as someone auditioning for the very first time. One production assistant approached him and smiled. "Are you okay?" Gary laughed softly. "I've performed for years," he said. "But somehow this feels different." The assistant nodded. "Why?" Gary looked toward the stage. "Because here, nobody owes me anything. Tonight, I have to earn every second." Those words revealed something remarkable. Despite all his achievements, Gary understood that every stage demands authenticity. Fame from yesterday doesn't guarantee applause today. As his name was called, he took a deep breath and walked toward the bright lights. The audience greeted him with polite applause. Some recognized him immediately, while others simply saw an older contestant stepping onto the stage. Simon glanced at his notes. "Tell us your name." "My name is Gary Valenciano." The audience erupted as many Filipino fans instantly recognized him. Simon raised an eyebrow. "You seem familiar to quite a few people." Gary smiled. "I've been singing for many years." "Many years?" Simon asked. The crowd laughed. Gary nodded. "A few decades." The judges exchanged curious looks. "Why come to AGT now?" Simon asked. It was a simple question, but Gary's answer changed the atmosphere completely. "Because dreams don't have an expiration date." The audience applauded warmly. Gary continued. "There are still people I want to inspire. There are still stories I want to tell. And there are still mountains I want to climb." Something about his sincerity immediately connected with everyone. Simon leaned forward. "Well, good luck." The music began. At first, the room was silent. Gary stood alone beneath a spotlight. The opening notes echoed gently through the theater. Then he sang. His voice emerged soft and controlled, carrying decades of experience and emotion. Every note felt genuine. There was no need for flashy tricks or dramatic effects. His voice carried something more powerful, truth. The audience listened carefully. As the song progressed, emotions began to rise. People could hear joy in his voice. They could hear pain. They could hear gratitude. They could hear perseverance. The performance felt less like a competition and more like a conversation between Gary and every person in the room. Simon crossed his arms initially, studying carefully as he always did. He wasn't easily impressed. Years of judging talent competitions had made him one of the toughest critics in entertainment. But slowly, something changed. His expression softened. The audience noticed. The cameras noticed. And viewers at home would notice too. Gary wasn't merely singing notes. He was sharing a lifetime. Every challenge he had overcome seemed woven into the lyrics. Every setback became part of the melody. Years earlier, Gary had faced health struggles that could have ended his career. There had been moments when uncertainty filled his future. Doctors delivered difficult news. Recovery demanded strength. There were days when performing seemed impossible. Yet he never quit. He continued moving forward one step at a time. Now all those experiences poured into his performance. The audience felt it. Some began wiping away tears. Others held their hands over their hearts. The theater had transformed into something extraordinary. The song reached its second verse. Gary's confidence grew. His voice soared higher. The emotion intensified. A young girl sitting near the front squeezed her mother's hand. An elderly man nodded quietly as tears rolled down his cheeks. People from completely different backgrounds suddenly shared the same feeling. Hope. Gary wasn't singing about perfection. He was singing about perseverance. And that's a message every person understands. The judges sat captivated. Nobody interrupted. Nobody spoke. Nobody wanted to break the moment. Then came the bridge. The music softened again. Gary stepped forward. The spotlight narrowed. For a few seconds, it felt as if he were singing directly to every individual in the room. The vulnerability in his voice was undeniable. Years of triumph and hardship blended into one unforgettable moment. Simon stared silently. For perhaps the first time all evening, he appeared completely absorbed. The final chorus arrived. The orchestra swelled. The audience rose from their seats. One by one, people stood. Then entire rows followed. Within moments, the entire theater was standing. The sound of applause began before Gary had even finished singing. The energy became overwhelming. People cheered. People cried. People shouted his name. The final note echoed through the auditorium. Silence followed. A beautiful silence. The kind that happens when people need a moment to process what they've just experienced. Then the theater exploded. The standing ovation became deafening. Gary lowered his head, visibly emotional. He placed a hand over his heart. The audience continued cheering. The judges stood as well. Simon remained motionless for a moment before slowly rising to his feet. That simple action spoke volumes. Gary looked overwhelmed. For a performer who had spent decades receiving applause, this moment felt different. This wasn't recognition for past accomplishments. This was appreciation for who he was right now. The cheers continued. When they finally settled enough for the judges to speak, nobody seemed sure where to begin. The first judge praised his artistry. Another complimented his humility. A third spoke about the emotional connection he created. Then Simon took the microphone. The crowd quieted instantly. Everyone wanted to hear what he would say. Simon looked at Gary for several seconds before speaking. You know, after all these years, after seeing so many performers, I thought very little could surprise me. The audience listened carefully. Simon continued. But tonight wasn't just about singing. Gary's eyes filled with tears. Simon nodded. It was about reminding us why music matters. The audience erupted into applause again. Simon paused. For a rare moment, he seemed genuinely emotional. You came here with nothing to prove. Yet somehow you proved everything. The crowd cheered louder than ever. Gary struggled to hold back tears. Years of hard work, sacrifice, discipline, and resilience seemed to converge into that single moment. Then something unexpected happened. One of the judges reached toward the golden buzzer. The audience gasped. Gary looked confused. Surely not. Not now. Not for him. The judge smiled. You reminded everyone here that greatness isn't about age. The audience roared. It's about heart. Gary covered his face. The judge continued. And because of that, the hand slammed down. Golden confetti exploded from above. The theater erupted into chaos. People screamed. People cried. People jumped from their seats. Golden rain filled the air. Gary stood frozen. For a moment he couldn't move. He simply stared upward as shimmering gold covered the stage. The reality slowly sank in. Golden buzzer. Directly through to the live shows. The crowd's cheers became almost deafening. Gary finally dropped to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. Years of memories flooded back. Every struggle. Every sacrifice. Every obstacle. Every victory. Every lesson. Everything had led to this moment. His family rushed onto the stage. They embraced tightly as confetti continued falling around them. Audience members cried openly. Many people watching realized they weren't witnessing a contestant chasing fame. They were witnessing a human being proving that passion never grows old. Simon walked onto the stage and shook Gary's hand. The respect between them was obvious. No lengthy speech was necessary. Some moments speak for themselves. As the celebration continued, viewers around the world felt inspired. Because Gary's story wasn't only about music. It was about refusing to let fear define your future. It was about understanding that success doesn't mean you're finished growing. It was about having the courage to begin again, even after achieving what others consider impossible. Many people stop pursuing dreams because they think they're too